The great chamber filled with scared voices as Ambassador Veltar hit the crystal table with his 4 hands. His blue skin looked pale with worry. Around him, leaders from different worlds sat in their special chairs, all looking frightened. 17. Star systems are gone, Veltar said, his voice shaking. The disease kills everything it touches. Our doctors cannot stop it. Elder Mira floated in her water tank, her fish-like body moving slowly. Her people lived in the oceans of distant worlds, but now those oceans were turning black with sickness. My children die in days, she whispered. The young ones cannot fight this plague. The chamber grew quiet. Everyone knew what this meant. The disease was not natural. Someone had made it to kill them all. Old Corvex lifted his heavy head. His reptile-like face showed deep worry lines. He was the oldest being in the room, old enough to remember stories that others thought were just tales. Long ago there were people who could solve problems no one else could solve, he said slowly. They were called humans. Some delegates laughed nervously. Others looked confused. Humans were just old stories now, weren't they? Humans disappeared 3,000 years ago, said Captain Zox of the Warrior Bricks people. His red skin showed scars from many battles. No one knows where they went. Maybe they never existed at all. But Corvex shook his head. They existed. I was young when they vanished. They had strange ideas and did impossible things. When everyone said something could not be done, humans found a way to do it. Dr. Lyra of the Pale Vex people checked her datapad. Numbers and charts filled the small screen. The plague spreads faster each day. Our best scientists from 50 worlds cannot understand it. It changes every time we try to fight it. Then we need someone who thinks differently, Corvex said quietly. Veltar stood up, his forearms spread wide. Humans are gone. We searched the galaxy for 1,000 years after they disappeared. Every human world was empty. Every human ship was silent. They left nothing behind except empty buildings and old machines that do not work anymore. The truth was darker than most knew. Humans had not just disappeared, they had been hunted. Species that feared human cleverness had worked together to drive them away. But that was ancient history now, and the hunters were dead while their children faced extinction. What about the old stories? Asked a small voice. Young Pip of the tree-like fern people had never spoken in the great chamber before. My grandmother told me humans could fix anything that was broken. Stories, Veltar said firmly. We need real solutions. But across the chamber, warning lights began to flash. The plague had reached another system. Millions more would die before the next meeting. Far away in the cold darkness between stars, something stirred. Deep in a ship that had drifted through empty space for thousands of years, machines began to wake up. Sensors that had slept for centuries turned toward the distant glow of the galaxy's center. The ship was enormous, big enough to hold a small city. Its name was painted in faded letters on the side, Endurance. Inside, thousands of sleeping pods lined the walls of huge rooms. Most were dark and cold, but some showed tiny green lights that blinked slowly like sleeping hearts. A computer voice spoke into the silence. Long-range sensors detecting emergency signals from inner systems. Plague signatures identified. Awakening medical staff. One of the sleeping pods began to warm up. Ice melted from its surface as machines pumped warm air inside. The person sleeping within began to breathe faster. Back in the council chamber, the argument continued. Some wanted to evacuate healthy worlds. Others demanded they stand and fight. But fight what? The plague was invisible, unstoppable, and getting stronger. We should pray to the old gods, suggested Minister Kex of the religious Orth people. The old gods are silent, Corvex replied sadly. But maybe someone else will hear our call. He walked to the great window that looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, beyond the light of familiar suns, darkness waited. But maybe, just maybe, something waited in that darkness too. Send the call on all frequencies, he said suddenly. Old and new, use every language we know. Call to who? Veltar demanded. Corvex pressed his clawed hand against the cold glass. To anyone who might remember us, to anyone who might care that we are dying. The message went out into space, carried by invisible waves that traveled faster than light itself. It spoke of plague and death, of hope lost and time running out. It begged for help from anyone who might hear. Most of the message faded into the emptiness between stars, but some of it, just enough, reached the sensors of a ship called Endurance. And in that ship, someone was finally waking up. The galaxy had forgotten about humans long ago. But humans had not forgotten about the galaxy. They had been waiting, sleeping, drifting through the dark. Now they were coming home. But first, they had to remember who they used to be. Dr. Hana Kim felt cold air touch her face as the sleeping pod opened with a soft hiss. Her eyes opened slowly and bright lights made her blink. She had been asleep for 300 years, but it felt like closing her eyes just yesterday. "Welcome back, Dr. Kim," said a calm computer voice. "I am Atlas, the ship's mind. You have slept well." Hana sat up carefully. Her body felt stiff and strange. Around her, other sleeping pods were opening too. People she had known before the long sleep were waking up, looking confused and scared. "Where are we?" she asked, her voice rough from the long silence. "We are still traveling between the stars," Atlas replied. "But we have received calls for help from our old home. The galaxy is sick, and many are dying." Hana stepped out of the pod and walked on shaky legs toward the window. Outside she could see stars everywhere, more stars than anyone could count. But they looked different now, older somehow. Captain J. Park was already awake and standing in the control room. He was a tall man with kind eyes and gray hair. Beside him stood Chief Engineer Sue Lee, a woman who could fix anything that was broken. "How long this time?" Hana asked as she joined them. 300 years, Jay said quietly. "The ship has been flying itself while we slept. Atlas kept us safe." Sue was looking at numbers on a screen. Her face was worried. "The signals we picked up, they match the old weapons from the war. The same sickness that made us run away." Hana felt her heart beat faster. She remembered the war, remembered watching whole worlds get sick and die. That was why they had to leave. That was why they had to run into the darkness between stars. "How many of us are left?" she asked. 12,000 people on this ship, Jay answered. "That is all. We are the last humans in the universe." The three friends stood quietly, thinking about this. Somewhere out there, the people they once knew were dying from the same sickness that had chased humans away long ago. "The galaxy forgot about us," Sue said sadly. "They probably think we are all dead." But Atlas spoke up. "The emergency signals mention humans in the old stories. Some still remember." Hana walked to the big window and looked out at the distant glow of their old home. "We left because they were trying to kill us. Now they are dying from the same weapon. Maybe this is justice. Or maybe this is our chance to show them who we really are," Jay said softly. The ship had been flying for 3,000 years, hiding in the empty space between galaxies. Inside, frozen families waited in sleeping pods. Children who had never seen a real sun. Parents who had given up everything to keep their people alive. "We could keep flying," Sue suggested. "Find a new galaxy, far away from all this. Let them solve their own problems." Jay looked at his old friends. They had been through so much together. The war, the running, the long years of fear. Is that who we want to be? People who run away when others need help? "They hunted us," Hana said, her voice hard. "They wanted us gone, now they are getting what they wished for." But even as she said it, she knew it was wrong. The people dying now were not the same ones who had hurt humans long ago. They were just scared beings trying to survive, just like humans had been. "Atlas, show us the emergency signals again," Jay ordered. The computer voice filled the room with sounds from across the galaxy. Voices speaking different languages, all saying the same thing. "Help us. Save us. We are dying." One voice stood out. It was old and rough, speaking in the ancient common language that all species once used. To anyone who might hear this, we remember the old stories. We remember those who could do impossible things. If you are still out there, please help us. Hana closed her eyes. She remembered her grandmother telling stories about the old days when humans worked with other species to explore new worlds and cure diseases. Those had been good times, before fear made everyone enemies. The sickness is smart, she said finally. It changes every time they try to fight it. Their doctors cannot keep up. But we know things they do not, Sue added. We learned different ways during our long journey. Jay nodded slowly. We are not the same humans who ran away. We are stronger now, smarter, and we know what it feels like to be alone. He walked to the ship's controls and put his hand on the communication switch. Atlas, wake up all the medical teams and set course for the inner galaxy. Are you sure about this? Hana asked. Once we show ourselves, there is no going back to hiding. We were never meant to hide, Jay replied. We were meant to help. The great ship began to turn, its engines humming with new purpose. Behind them, the cold darkness of exile fell away. Ahead, their old home waited, sick and dying, but still beautiful. 12,000 humans flew toward uncertain fate, carrying hope and knowledge gained through 3,000 years of wandering. They were going home at last. The galaxy was about to remember what humans could do. The huge ship Endurance appeared from nowhere, dropping out of the fast space travel near the Krylon star system. Its size made the defense stations look like tiny toys floating in space. Warning alarms rang across 17 worlds as sensors detected something impossible. Captain J. Park stood in the ship's control room, looking at the screens that showed familiar star patterns. His hands shook slightly as he reached for the communication controls. 3,000 years of hiding were about to end. This is Captain J. Park of the Human Remnant Fleet. His voice traveled across space on old emergency channels. We heard your calls for help. We are coming home. On the Galactic Council's emergency station, the control room exploded into chaos. Officers who had never heard of humans stared at their screens in confusion. The translation computers worked, frantically to confirm what they were hearing. Ambassador Veltar's blue face turned pale. That is impossible. Humans are extinct. They have been gone for 3,000 years. But Elder Corvex felt his old heart beating fast with hope. He pressed his clawed hands against his chest and whispered, They came back. The stories were true. Dr. Lyra checked her instruments 3 times. The ship signature matches old human designs from the archives, but it is much larger than anything in the records. Captain Zox of the Warrior Bricks people grabbed his weapon. This could be a trick. Maybe enemies are using human voices to fool us. Or maybe, Corvex said quietly, our prayers have been answered. The communication channel crackled again. We request permission to send medical teams to help with the plague. We know what you are fighting. On the Endurance, Dr. Hana Kim prepared her medical equipment. Around her, other human doctors and scientists gathered supplies they had not used in centuries. Everything felt strange and new, but also familiar. Are you ready for this? Asked Dr. Min Park, a young woman who had been born during the long journey between stars. She had never seen another species before. No one is ever ready to meet old friends who thought you were dead, Hana replied. But we have work to do. The first shuttle left Endurance carrying 20 human medical staff. As it approached the Krylon hospital ship, both sides watched nervously. The humans had not seen other species in 3,000 years. The aliens had not seen humans since they were children hearing old stories. The shuttle docked with a soft bump. The airlock opened, slowly, and Dr. Hana Kim stepped through wearing a simple white medical uniform. The Krylon doctors waiting for her had crystal-like skin that usually sparkled, but now looked dull and gray from sickness. Dr. Vexhai of the Krylon people stared at the human woman. She looked exactly like the old pictures in the history books, but real and alive. You are actually human? Yes, Hana said gently. And you are dying. May we help? She followed the Krylon doctors through corridors filled with sick patients. The crystal people lay on beds, their beautiful skin cracked and fading. Some were very young, barely more than children. The sickness came from nowhere 6 months ago, Dr. Vexhai explained. It kills everything it touches. We have tried every medicine, every treatment. Nothing works. Hana knelt beside a young Krylon whose crystal body was almost completely gray. She took out a small device and scanned the patient. The readings made her feel cold inside. This is not natural, she said, quietly. Someone made this disease. Someone who knew exactly how to kill different species. Dr. Vexhai nodded sadly. We suspected this, but who would do such a thing? The same people who tried to kill us long ago, Hana replied. They wanted to destroy anyone who was different from them. Back on the Endurance, Chief Engineer Sue, Lee worked with the ship's computers to analyze the plague samples. What she found made her angry and sad at the same time. Captain, she called to Jay over the communication system. The plague targets the genetic markers from the old Alliance treaties. Remember when all species worked together to create universal medical treatments? Jay's face darkened. The treaties that humans helped write. Exactly. Someone took that cooperation and turned it into a weapon. The plague uses our own unity against us. In the medical bay, more human doctors worked alongside alien physicians. Dr. Yan Choi, a specialist in diseases, studied samples under powerful microscopes while Nerian doctors floated nearby in their water suits. The sickness changes every time we try to fight it, explained Dr. Miratal of the fish-like Nerians. It learns from our treatments and becomes stronger. Then we need to think differently, Yeon said. We need to be smarter than the disease. But, even as they worked, reports came in of more systems falling to the plague. Entire planets were going silent. The Bricks warrior worlds, known for their strength, were crying for help. The peaceful fern people, who had never hurt anyone, were dying in their forest cities. Elder Corvex contacted the Endurance directly. Human friends, he said, his old voice full of emotion. We are grateful you returned. But I fear you came, back only to watch us all die together. Captain Jay looked out at the stars, thinking of the 12,000 humans still sleeping in their pods. They had come so far and risked so much. But would it be enough? We are not here to watch you die, he replied firmly. We are here to do what humans do best. Which is what? Corvex asked. The impossible. Dr. Hana Kim stood in the middle of chaos. The cargo bay of the Endurance had been turned into the biggest laboratory anyone had ever seen. Human scientists worked next to alien doctors, their equipment spread across tables that should have held supplies for the long journey home. This is madness, whispered Dr. Vexhai of the Krylon people. His crystal skin flickered with worry as he watched humans break every safety rule he knew. You are mixing chemicals that should never touch each other. That is exactly why it might work, replied Dr. Yan Choi, not looking up from her microscope. Around her, test tubes bubbled with strange colors while machines beeped warnings that everyone ignored. The plague samples sat in sealed containers, dark and oily like liquid death. Every few hours, they changed shape, growing stronger against whatever treatment the doctors tried. It was like fighting an enemy that could read their minds. Look at this, called out Dr. Min Park from across the room. She was young and had never seen a plague before, which made her ask questions that older doctors had stopped asking. The sickness does not just kill, it learns. Elder Mira floated in her water tank, watching the humans work. Her fish-like people were dying on 17 worlds, but she had never seen anyone work like this. How do you fight something that gets smarter every time you attack it? We get smarter too, said Chief Engineer Sue Lee as she walked into the laboratory. Her clothes were covered in grease from working on the ship's quantum communication systems. But faster. She carried a device that looked like it had been built from spare parts and hope. Wires stuck out in all directions, and it hummed with dangerous energy. What is that? asked Captain Zox of the warrior Bricks people. Even his red skin looked pale as he stared at the strange machine. "This," Sue announced proudly, "is how we break the rules." Dr. Hana Kim left her workstation and walked over to examine the device. "Sue, please tell me you did not connect our medical systems to the ship's quantum transmitter." "Okay, I will not tell you that." Sue grinned. "But that is exactly what I did." The alien doctors looked confused. Dr. Vexhi's crystal body flickered, faster with nervousness. "I do not understand. What does communication equipment have to do with medicine?" "Everything," said Dr. Yan Choi, suddenly excited. "The plague spreads through biological contact, but what if we could spread the cure through quantum signals?" "That is impossible," protested Dr. Lyra of the Pale Vex people. "You cannot send medicine through space like a radio message." "You are right," Hana admitted. "We cannot send medicine that way, but we can send information, instructions, blueprints." She walked to a large screen and began drawing diagrams that made the alien doctors gasp. "Every species in the galaxy has different biology, but you all share one thing. You all helped create the old Alliance medical database." Elder Corvex, who had been quietly watching from the corner, suddenly understood. "The same database the plague uses to target us." "Exactly," Hana continued. "The plague knows how to kill each species because it reads your genetic signatures from the Alliance records. But what if we use those same records to teach your bodies how to fight back?" Dr. Vexhi's crystal skin stopped flickering. "You want to turn our own Alliance against the plague?" "Better than that," Sue interrupted, patting her jury-rigged machine. "We want to use the galaxy's communication network to make every species immune at the same time." The room fell silent except for the humming of machines and the bubbling of test tubes. What the humans were suggesting was beyond dangerous. It had never been tried before. It could kill everyone instead of saving them. "The risks are enormous," Dr. Myra Tull of the Nerian said slowly. "If you make even one mistake, you could wipe out entire species." "And if we do nothing," Captain J. Park said as he entered the laboratory, "the plague will wipe out everyone anyway." He looked around at the controlled chaos of the makeshift lab. Humans and aliens working together, sharing knowledge that had been separated for 3,000 years. "This is what we came back for. Not to hide, not to run, but to do what everyone says cannot be done." Dr. Min Park raised her hand like a student in school. "But how do we test it? We only get one chance." "We test it on ourselves first," Hana said firmly. "Human volunteers will receive the first treatments. If it works on us, then we know it is safe for others." "And if it does not work?" asked Dr. Vexhi quietly. "Then at least we tried," Jay replied. "That is what humans do. We try impossible things until they become possible." Over the next 3 days, the strange laboratory became the center of frantic activity. Humans worked without sleeping, fueled by coffee and determination. Alien doctors contributed their knowledge of how the plague affected their people. Engineers modified quantum transmitters to carry biological data instead of simple messages. Finally, Dr. Yan Choi looked up from her workstation with tired but hopeful eyes. "I think we have it. The treatment should adapt to each species automatically when it receives the quantum signal." "Should," Sue repeated. "That is not the same as will." "No," Hana agreed, rolling up her sleeve. "But it is the best chance we have." She was the first to receive the experimental treatment, followed by 20 other human volunteers. If they were wrong, they would die. But if they were right, they would save the galaxy. The universe held its breath and waited. 1 year had passed since the Great Sickness ended, and the galaxy looked different now. The space station New Geneva floated like a bright jewel among the stars, built where the old Galactic Council used to meet. But this place was nothing like the cold, formal chambers of before. Captain J. Park, now called Ambassador J., walked through corridors filled with laughter and strange music. Human children ran past him, chasing young Krelon whose crystal skin sparkled with joy. A group of Nerian youngsters splashed in shallow pools while Brick's children showed them how to make paper boats. "Hard to believe it was only a year ago," said Dr. Hana Kim as she joined him at the great viewing window. Outside, ships from 50 different worlds came and went, carrying trade goods, messages, and most importantly, hope. Feels like a lifetime, Jay agreed. His hair had turned completely gray during the dark months of fighting the plague, but his eyes were brighter than they had been in centuries. They watched as the Endurance docked at the station's main port. The great ship no longer carried refugees, fleeing into darkness. Now it brought families coming home, human colonists ready to build new worlds alongside their alien friends. In the medical center, Dr. Yan Choi checked the health records one more time. The numbers still seemed impossible even after a year. 0 new plague cases in 8 months, she reported to the Joint Medical Committee. The quantum cure protocol worked better than we dared hope. Dr. Vexhai of the Krylon people nodded, his crystal skin flashing bright colors of happiness. My people call it the Great Healing, not just from sickness, but from the fear that divided us. The meeting room was full of species that had once barely spoken to each other. Now they shared medical knowledge freely, built research stations together, and most importantly, made sure no one would ever face extinction alone again. The Diversity Compact is ready for signing, announced Elder Corvex. The old reptile moved slowly now, but his voice was strong with purpose. Every species has agreed to the new rules. The compact was written in simple words that everyone could understand. No species could be hunted to extinction. No one could be forced to leave their homes. Differences between peoples were strengths to celebrate, not problems to solve. And if anyone faced danger, all others would come to help. It sounds so simple when you say it like that, laughed Captain Zox of the Bricks people. His red skin showed new scars from helping to build the station. But these were good scars, earned through honest work instead of war. Young Pip of the tree-like fern people raised a branch-like hand. She was not young anymore, having grown during the year of rebuilding. My grandmother lived to see humans return. She said it was like watching the old stories come true. In the station's school, human teacher Ms. Sue Lee watched her mixed classwork on a science project. Krylon children used their natural crystal growth to build structures, while Nerian students calculated water flow rates. Human kids provided wild ideas that made everyone laugh and think. What are you building? She asked a group working in the corner. A city under the sea that also flies through space, announced young Jin Park, grandson of the ship's captain. My Nerian friend says we can do it if we use crystal technology and human engines. That is impossible, Ms. Lee said with a smile. Then we will make it possible, replied Kira, a young Krylon whose skin sparkled with determination. That is what friends do together. Later that evening, the signing ceremony began in the Great Hall. Representatives from every world gathered around a simple table made from wood grown on New Geneva. The document they would sign was not fancy or complicated. It just promised that they would take care of each other. Ambassador Jay stepped forward first. Humans sign this compact not as conquerors returning home, but as friends who learned that running away solves nothing. We are stronger together. One by one, the other ambassadors added their marks to the document. Some signed with pens, others with crystal formations, still others with bioluminescent patterns. Each signature was different, but they all meant the same thing. We will not let each other fall. Elder Corvex signed last, his old claws carefully scratching his name in the ancient script. I have lived long enough to see the galaxy break apart and come back together. May our children never know such darkness again. The celebration that followed lasted 3 days. Music from every world mixed together in harmonies no one had imagined before. Foods were shared that created entirely new flavors. Stories were told that became legends for the future. On the 3rd night, Jay stood again at the viewing window, watching ships depart for distant homes. Beside him, his old friends Hana and Sue shared quiet satisfaction at work well done. Do you think it will last? Hana asked. This peace we have built? Nothing lasts forever, Sue replied. But maybe we have given it a good start. Jay nodded, thinking of the children playing in the corridors, learning that differences were beautiful instead of frightening. We planted something good here. Whether it grows depends on them. Outside, the stars shone down on a galaxy that had learned to hope again. In the darkness between worlds, no one traveled alone anymore. The age of fear was ending, and the age of friendship had begun. The stars would remember this time, when the Forgotten returned and taught the galaxy how to be whole again.